On to kingdom fungi. Kingdom fungi consists of eukaryotes. They are mainly multicellular. These guys can be very important decomposers in our ecosystems. They can be parasitic, where they have that positive-negative relationship with hosts in order to acquire their nutrient needs, or they can be symbiotic, and I'm going to give you a beautiful example of that. Remember that symbiotic relationship is positive-positive. The fungi will benefit, and whatever organism they're having a relationship with, they will also benefit. That's a mutualistic relationship between different species. The scientific study of fungi is called mycology. So fungi are very important organisms. They're actually quite tasty organisms. The diamond of the kitchen. Check out these black truffles. These guys are quite delicious. A single ounce can go for over $100. White truffles even more expensive. I always ask my students, does anybody know why these truffles are so expensive? Why are they so expensive? The reason being is that they are quite hard to farm. So actually acquiring these truffles is one going out there in order to obtain them in the wild, quote unquote. It's hard to mass produce them in a certain area. So just finding them is difficult. Here's a mushroom, beautiful mushroom. Lots of students think of these guys when I discuss fungi. I'm going to teach you all different kinds of fungi. A mushroom is more closely related to you than any plant. So this is why fungi comes after plants in the evolutionary timeline, how I'm going to discuss them. Molecular studies, recent molecular tech tools have given us this insight that fungi and animals are quite closely related, having a common ancestor. Here's fungi phylogeny. I am not going to test you on the phylums, but I am going to go over it so that you can see how we categorize these different guys. So first up in the timeline, we still have flagella being retained, that structure. It's the earliest branch. These guys are found in aquatic environments having that flagella for motility. These are your chytrids, Chytridiomycota. And so I can actually see these guys first appear. Next up are my zygomycotas. Zygomycotas are known as your zygote fungi. We're going to find these guys in soil or decaying plant animal matter. These guys are beautiful decomposers. A lot of bread molds are going to be your zygote fungi. Next up, we see, and as you go here, I want you to see that loss of flagella has happened on this timeline. So we already see that in my zygomycota. Next up is ascomycota. Ascomycotas are your sac fungi. These guys are going to have sexual spores that develop in sacs. Think of truffles, think of yeast. They fall under this category. And what you guys are probably thinking of when I discuss fungi are your basidiomycotas. These are your club fungi. These guys reproduce sexually. Most of them are mushrooms, having that complex reproductive structure. Okay, these are the classifications that you will see that we use out of convenience. So you don't really see them how I presented it here. You will see it in your science textbook or other science textbooks, but we present it this way to students. So I'm going to give you 3 classifications of fungi. First up are your yeasts. Yeasts are unicellular. Only one cell. Remember, we are in domain eukarya, so we are talking about a one-celled eukaryotic organism. These are yeasts. Most yeasts are very useful for humans. That I'm going to teach you guys, yeasts are actually have been the most useful for humans. A couple of examples of why. Yeasts give us antibiotics. Think of penicillin. It's this beautiful discovery that have given us these antimicrobial effects to ward off nasty bacteria that would otherwise cause great harm to our species. So here I can actually see penicillium. That's going to be a yeast, and I can actually see how that guy is going to ward off this bacteria known as Staphylococcus. That's going to be antimicrobial. Another example why yeasts are beneficial for humans is making bread. This is an aerobic process. It requires oxygen. Here is the most common yeast, known as Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So nice tasty product coming from that guy to help along with that process. In addition, yeasts can make another tasty product, alcohol. This is going to be an anaerobic means via fermentation that's going to lead to that product. Next classification are your molds. Molds are basically fungal growth resulting from a mass of hyphae. I'm going to teach you that that is called a mycelium. So here I can see some bread. It's been left out for a pretty long time. Because of that, some nasty little decomposers have come in and acquired those nutrients for their own energy needs. These are molds. They are a type of fungi. Last classification are your mushrooms. Mushrooms are the fruiting body of a fungus. So it's going to be a reproductive structure. It's part of a fungus. It is the part that you see. So part that is above ground, that's visible. There's actually a lot more occurring below ground than you can see. Some mushrooms are edible, quite tasty. Some are poisonous. This is the toadstool mushroom. Some are hallucinogenic. Here I'm showing you actually a hallucinogenic type, that is Amitia muscaria. Lewis C. Carroll is actually an important author, wrote Alice in Wonderland. So here I can see an image. And that story was actually, it's been told that it was written under the influence of this hallucinogenic mushroom. Given a lot of insight into that well-known story. It's difficult to tell. There's kind of not really a common way to teach you guys if some mushrooms are poisonous, if some are hallucinogenic. It depends. So really the best advice is to never eat a wild mushroom, because you don't know which one is going to be edible, which one's going to be poisonous, which one's going to be hallucinogenic. It's difficult to tell. Let's talk about fungal structure. So the bodies of most fungi are constructed of thread-like filaments called hyphae. So here in this image, I can actually see these thread-like structures. What I mean by thread-like is they branch ever so often, and they're quite thin, sometimes just one cell in width. They are known as hyphae, and I can see the hyphae be underground and extend above ground. And when they extend above ground, they're going to be part of forming the reproductive structure, that mushroom that you see above ground. See that hyphae forming that. So hyphae are basically threads of cytoplasm, very, very, very small structures. They're surrounded by a thin plasma membrane and cell walls. Usually they're composed of chitin. Hyphae, as you can see, branches into repeated units, and basically an interwoven network is formed. Check out how complex this interweaving network is with all this hyphae. This is called a mycelium. The overall hyphae network is termed a mycelium. Here I can actually see a mycelium in a non-cartoon format. The mycelium, basically, what is this hyphae doing? It is the feeding structure of the fungus. So I can see that having all this network here, all these different cells being branched out, is going to help out with a large surface area to absorb and suck up all the nice tasty nutrients that that fungi is going to surround.